Try to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Total Protonic Reversal.
Protonic Reversal.
Protonic Reversal with your host, Conan Neutron. Broadcasting from a secret underground lair in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
A gigantic middle finger to everything that is rotten about music, rock and roll, and corporate power.
The thing is, though, if you don't laugh, you're going to go on a killing spree with sharpened nails.
Confidence of a hero or a fool. I wasn't exactly certain which.
Could not be more professional.
It's only one I choose to devote my life to. That's okay.
It means something. It means something.
And they got away.
You know, that's my take. What's yours?
Protonic Reversal.
That's like a science thing, right?
Indeed is a science thing. It is a science place. It is a scientific fact that we are all up in your face. It is time for the one, the only Protonic Reversal. Welcome to it. Special late night edition of Protonic Reversal tonight, Saturday night, with the tunnel. We got all three of them here. This is a rare treat. Fellas, please say hello. We have Jeff, Sam, and Michael. Please greet the audience.
Hey, this is Jeff from the tunnel.
There we go. Much better. Why don't we do that? Let's do take two on that. This is live radio, folks. This is live. Jeff, can you speak once more, please?
This is Jeff from the tunnel.
Beautiful,
Hello.
beautiful. I feel like what's his face in Inglourious Bastards? Let me hear the music when he's talking about the. I'm telling you.
I'm Sam from the tunnel.
Sam, welcome.
Thank you.
Michael, good to be here. Thanks for having us, Conan.
Yeah, so great to have you. In case you're wondering why I'm making you introduce yourselves when I know you very damn well, it's just so people can differentiate the different voices that maybe are less familiar. You guys are an excellent band. Are you claiming San Francisco? Is it just a greater Bay Area thing? Like what? Tell me. It's an important distinction amongst people in the Bay Area. Is the tunnel an SF band?
Well, we still practice there, and 1/3 of us still lives there. So, yeah.
I think if you're practicing in San Francisco, I think that officially makes you a San Francisco band at this point. That's as far as bona fides go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So welcome to the show. It's been a interesting year. You guys have been incredibly productive for COVID times, and that's very difficult. And I as you know, I mentioned Shapeshifter in the best of what is it? 20 best of 2020. I can't remember my own freaking titles for episodes. 20 best albums of 2020. But it's actually you sort of did the thing where you released a bunch of them over the course of the year. There's EPs. I don't want anyone to crosstalk over each other, but was that the original way you wanted to go about it? Did that plan change because of COVID? How was the plan of getting all this material out in the world, and did COVID change that in any way?
I would say that in some ways, it was just circumstance. We happened to get a bunch of things rolling. So we had a bunch of stuff in the air right as COVID hit. So that like 4 records or whatever silly thing that happened for us in 2020 was kind of already in motion. And all it had to do was land. Well, it was a little harder than that, but it was pretty much all up in the air already. So, but yeah. And since then, we've been working on new stuff. So that has changed.
Well, even with Shapeshifter, that was like all the songs put together, but then we had the 2 little mini releases too, with the 2 song and a little single 1 song kind of thing. So yeah, it was a lot of stuff.
So did you find the kind of constantly releasing thing, which of course the Spotify bro said is the only way to do things? Did you find that worked out well to your for the band as far as getting the music in front of people, or is the jury still out?
Michael's the person who knows about such things.
Well, I mean, we were kind of doing Shapeshifter was kind of a combination of 3 different sessions, and it definitely got delayed due to COVID in terms of the whole vinyl cycle and such like that. But yeah, like Sam said, I mean, we, pretty much have been writing pretty regularly, and just have had the debate of whether or not it makes sense in today's world to like wait for a sit on material and wait for a full length release. And so that's kind of why we've been doing the EP thing. And Forbidden Records was cool enough to put a lot of that stuff together into a full length. We've been writing a lot in the last few months, and I'm of the mind to do a full length next, but we're still discussing. So
I mean, so yeah, and it's interesting because the Tunnel's music is very, it's overutilized as a terminology, but cinematic in a way. Like it's sort of like it evokes certain like dark imagery and film and things along those lines. So as such, normally when you have a band along those lines, you would get some deep like, well, the flow of the album is blah blah blah, this and that and the other thing. So the idea that like the album almost kind of came, not happenstance necessarily, but maybe not as a preconceived thing is somewhat surprising, because it does all slot very nicely. Is that more, did all the material kind of come around the same time, like all these EPs? Because I thought they were recorded at different times, if I remember correctly. But
yeah, I mean, that makes sense, because even though we also kind of flip genres or subgenres like every song, they're all kind of like sequential, so they should come out of a similar like mind space of whatever we were in at the time. We were writing all those songs at the same time usually, so at least that should be cohesive. And then we do put a lot of work into sequencing, probably our cinematic thing like you talk about. Even vigorous debates if there should be a second or a half second in between songs, all that nonsense.
So the spacing in between, you mean, like the okay, gotcha. Is the idea being that you don't, maybe you want to either do or do not want to give people a break before you launch into the next thing? Is that the mindset there?
Yeah, there's a beat there in between the songs that we try to respect.
So, and Jeff, since you and I are ones currently talking right now, I'll address this to you. Did the envisioning of the Tunnel as it originally began evolve and change, or was it always pretty much like this? What you have now is sort of like the fully realized of where it started from?
I would say it is definitely evolved, and if you listen to any of our albums, it may not even sound like the same band. Maybe there's a thread running through it. I don't know. But yeah, it started with just me and a drummer, Pat, back in like 2008. And it's metamorphosized several times. Sam jumped in very soon after that. And then we've had lots of great metamorphoses since then. So
that's one of those things that I knew the answer to that question, but I just decided to ask it anyway, because not everyone is going to know. But I would say, from a perspective as a listener, like the definitional Tunnel sound that people have grown to love sort of appeared, if not in its full form, close to it when Sam came in. You guys kind of started to be a little more hard edged. Some big black kind of, anytime there was at the time there was drum machine, or sequence drums. I don't know how you want to phrase it. And I feel like anytime there's sequence drums or drum machine, saying big black is about the laziest thing you can do. But it came from that same sort of mindset of like, dark 80s sort of post-punk, but your take on that. And that's kind of when it was like, oh, this is interesting. They're taking like a bit of a dark turn. And then after that, of course, Michael joining the band as a live drummer, it was like, oh, it's like that, but this is like the non-mechanized version of that. Michael, did you when you saw them playing with the drum machine, what was your thoughts? Were your thoughts like, hey, I want to boy, I'd like to see what I can do with these guys with the real drums, or like what was the situation, the thought process there?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like really dug their songwriting dynamic, and I mean, it's the kind of thing where it's really different than stuff I had done previously, and
Right.
yeah, just I don't know, we just kind of jibed in terms of like got along, and definitely all in the same, I don't know, mentality and thought space, I guess, and it just was kind of a smooth fit, and yeah, but I mean, and for me, like definitely, like I kind of came from a lot more like not 4/4, not like that sort of thing, so almost like emulating machines was sort of like a challenge, I guess.
Right.
Organically, at least.
Well, did you feel the need to sort of emulate the sort of more almost grinding process of the drums, like that like kind of that feel, or did you want to take it in a different direction immediately?
Well, I think like when I started, they had just made the 6-song 6 Curses of the Blackout Witch Cave, which I like. I mean, those songs, we were playing those live pretty regularly, so I kind of tried to match that as much as possible in terms of, I mean, still, give it an organic feel, but like kind of keep it true to its original form. But I mean, certainly since then, as we've been writing, it's gone off in a lot of different directions and gotten a lot more organic and like off the cuff, but still keeping, I guess, in many ways, still keeping the machine-like qualities at times. So it's it's been cool and varied.
Well, I guess the reason I ask, because splitting the difference there is sometimes harder than people might imagine, especially as a drummer, because if you're coming in to something and there's kind of been a compositional process that has been one way, then suddenly kind of switching gears and introducing human elements can be different. So did you fall upon your, I don't know, I hesitate to use the word like math rock background? Did you lay into that at all?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think these guys have a very established writing process, and when I came in, and I mean, I think that it was really cool how it naturally evolved to kind of let me, come into. I mean, in many cases, they'll write stuff and already have kind of like a drum concept with drum machines and stuff like that, which is different than I've worked with in the past. But yeah, it was actually, I mean, it was really cool. Not all of our songs are like that by any means, but it let me, with flourishes and transitions and changes and stuff like that, like it had like kind of a basis, but then let me add my flavor. And I mean, I think it seemed to work out okay. Keep the original like intention. Sorry.
Sam, the rhythm section is such a vital part of this band, as well as many others, but the idea of going from bass with drums to bass with drum machine back to bass with drums, was there any sort of adjustment period for bringing, when you brought Michael in and you brought in his style of drumming, or was it relatively straightforward once you actually got to work?
No, I mean, I think I'm glad that Jeff and I kind of worked together with a couple different drummers and did a couple records, and then when it was clear that the lineup that we had wasn't working, and we just kind of stripped everything down, just said, let's just, until we find a drummer, let's just write stuff. And so that's when we broke out the drum machines, and I even got duplicates of all my drum machines so I could keep one at the practice spot, keep one at my house. So it was just, I mean, the stuff we did, even like Michael said, the Witch Cave, we just we did that all of ourselves, and it was all kind of direct. So it was like, fuck it, this is what we're doing right now, this is what we have, let's just put out a CD. But I mean, I think if we never found Michael, we never found each other, I don't know if we'd still be I guess we'd still be using a drum machine stuff. We just have to, I know Jeff and I work really well together, like writing songs, so it's like we're not going to be stopped by not having a human. So we just hire a machine and put stuff into that. And I mean, we intentionally made the sounds kind of, we didn't want to get like canned sounds like, let's get spend $500 on these cool sounds. I mean, we found just regular noises and put it, and we're like, yeah, fuck it, that's it. And even now with the coming up with ideas and doing the COVID style, each kind of writing and sending each other files and stuff. I mean, when I come up with a drum beat, I still use the same tunnel sounds just so we have some kind of it's familiar and comfortable, I guess.
Is there a lot of demoing beforehand, or how does it work? Because I think that there's a lot of people that listen to the show, as you might imagine, are musicians, and anytime a band is able to operate in any remote manner, I think that process has become very interesting to folks, even whereas before it would be like, oh, who cares? Do you use Google Drive or Dropbox?
So this is straight like this is like being in prison right now. This really sucks. It's like I have like Michael and Jeff are my conjugal visit. So it's like let's have these ideas and like, oh, you know what? This is gonna happen. It'd be cool to have conjugal visit with both of them. Maybe this has happened. And it's like I'll send an idea and they'll take it, they'll send an idea, and it's like, well, this sucks, but it's cool, it's something. But yeah, I mean, we each have different platforms that we record on, like Pro Tools, GarageBand, or whatever. So I mean, we're still doing it lo-fi and just sending MP3s. So it's like, fuck it, give me a stereo MP3, add to it. And the songs are sounding actually way better than I thought, but so it's something. We have a surprising amount of really good songs that we'll probably crank out whenever, COVID vaccine and all that stuff. So yeah, but recording it, not like this. We're not going to like the MP3 sessions, nothing like that.
The constituent parts that assembling together to form the greater whole. It's going to be more like you're going to record it in a proper studio, and then that's a good point, because it's all the. There's a very distinct sound to what you guys do, but it's very well recorded. It's very well articulated, things along those lines. It wouldn't be something that people make like the music on their laptop, and for some folks, that lo-fi sort of thing really works. But I think for what you guys are going for, it wouldn't necessarily apply. It's interesting that Sam, you mentioned the things turning out pretty well, and maybe better than expected, because it kind of seems like when you're in a situation where you don't have physical contact with other creative people, you lose a lot of the visual cues and things where somebody can tell you that maybe they're not into something in very specific ways.
that is totally it. That is exactly, yeah. Like being, the whole thing. It's like you're playing something like, I got something, and you're like, everyone's tuning up or whatever. And you're like, playing something, you're like, yeah, your ears perking up, and then other times, no, it just doesn't work. So it's like, so these times it's like we can flesh out our little ideas and send it to the other person and be like, what do you guys think of this? And like Jeff always has these crazy synth, like all synthetic, like even the drum stuff, like Atari, like Pac-Man, like sounding stuff. You say, yeah, check this out. I'm like, I don't even, what do I do? What is this all? They saw like, and then play it and put my feel on it. And it's like, okay, check that out. And Michael put like, he's got some fancy electronic drums, and he puts something that sounds like real drums. And then Jeff will put actual guitar and vocals. I'm like, well, I'm totally didn't see that coming. And it's awesome.
And the next thing you know, it's an actual song, and it's actually put together.
Yeah, it's cool.
Jeff, has that been challenging for lyrics and for writing words to go with it, working that way, or do you find that it's about the same, easier, different?
It's so vocals are like the hardest thing to do, I think, for me, and I love doing them, and they're really rewarding, but I tend to need, like other things that are hard for a person to do, you need to be like motivated. And one of the things that motivates me is like getting into a practice room with these guys, or like we have a show coming up and it's like, I better have something to say. It better be legit. And as long as we're not, I think I can live a little bit longer to write vocals, but I'm always excited when I get them out in my room here, pretending there's pressure on me. But yeah.
Give yourself your own red light fever. Maybe turn on a red light where you can you can put the pressure on for yourself.
And like Sam said, it's like, I think we could all write an album here now, but it just wouldn't be as good. I think we're just waiting until the day we can get together again and like see each other's faces and see what really works and what really doesn't work, just like Sam said. And like, that's when they'll become tunnel songs.
Well, because you haven't really had the chance to have that live interaction yet. You haven't been able to have that kind of give and take between, a band can think a song is fantastic and like the best thing ever. And then you play it in front of an audience and it's like, oh, all right, that didn't hit the way I thought it did. Or a song that you're like, well, whatever, this one's fine, can become people's favorite. And you're like, oh, okay, I guess there's something there that we didn't realize as the people who made that music. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
But
and especially, okay.
Oh, no, please go ahead.
Especially, I feel like the chances of a song being good at this point are very low, though, because there's no, as good as like the 9 songs or whatever we have going on right now are, like, there's no glue. Like I think when we come together, we'll make that glue happen.
Yeah, and I guess where I was going out with some of that is just the whole discovery process of kind of operating in a vacuum. Right. Like it's something that everybody's discovering and some people are finding difficult to work at all. In fact, that's kind of been a repeated theme about, some folks writing me about the show and like hearing about what everyone is up to or not up to is, folks either sometimes feeling blocked or unable to create or, not being able to at all. And it's interesting to me personally, whenever I find folks that are, are diligent enough to keep working and find ways to make it work. So it sounded to me from how Sam was describing it, Jeff, like you were kind of making more demoed out stuff when you're doing it. Like you're kind of writing parts and adding them. And even though it's not necessarily going to be the final thing of anything, it's a little more articulate of a demo. Would you say that's correct?
I think even more so now. I think all of our demos have been more fleshed out now, but like, the part of the problem is like Michael has witnessed, Sam and I can't really have an idea without a rhythm part in mind. Like it's how we write stuff. And so, there's going to be like at least an electronic noise thing that functions as a drum. And probably I used to be a bassist. And so I can't think without bass frequencies. And so it just kind of, and like Sam says, it's like Atari music. I get stuck in a rut without trying to write stuff on new instruments. So like the past couple of years, I've been doing it all on like basically modular synthesizers, and so that's a way of keeping my brain off balance.
This is your brain on modular synths. Any questions?
Yeah.
So, Michael, this one's over to you. I feel that when you're a drummer, like the hardest thing with remote recording is being the drummer, because there's so much, like you can't just set up a drum set and start recording in an apartment or a house. That's just not going to be possible. So I mean, you mentioned using synth drums and things along those lines. Did you have to sort of rejigger your idea of things you wanted to do with the songs based on doing things in this way? And if so, what pathways did you find to help along with that?
Well, I mean, I guess, I've definitely had to get used to like just making, so I got like a sort of mid-range V-drum setup at home, and I have like a little separate like shack or whatever that's separate from my house, so I can like play late, and obviously it's all, doesn't have to be amplified, but I mean, it works really well for obviously just keeping sharp and keeping endurance up and that kind of stuff. And I ended up getting like a UAD setup like earlier in the year that was more intended for doing recording at the studio, but I've been, using that and, can at least run sort of decent effects to where, they still sound like synth drums, but they, sound more to my ear like they're supposed to. The cymbals suffer the most, I think. And definitely it's tough for me because I like doing stuff that's not like every note's the same volume. I like doing like washes and waves and shit like that. So that stuff doesn't really fly. But it I mean it works well enough to get ideas across. I mean, we had one time, I think it was in November, when in between the lockdowns, when we had been going through this process, and then we said, hey, I think we're going to be able to get together once. And so we did like a 5-hour practice where we were like in and out, like, taking breaks with masks and stuff like that. And it was, I don't know, man, it was like Christmas. It was great. But I mean,
it's got to be like being released from prison or something, right? At that point.
Yeah. I mean, we've been lucky enough to be able to hold on to our studio, which has been pretty awesome. But, and then to hear, you kind of have in your head how things are supposed to sound, at least for me, like, and you get, I spend a lot of time in my head anyway. But I mean, this whole process has worked well for me because I tend to take a long time to work on little details of parts. So I feel like I can do that now without having to pester other people and, have them deal with my, being slow to figure out parts, and at least get like 80% of the way there. And then when we get together, you kind of have to do a lot in your head to hear how it's going to sound. But I mean, I'd be a lot happier to do like at least like monthly practices and stuff like that once, hopefully at some point soon. But yeah, it's been an adjustment, but in some ways I actually kind of like it. Like I can, like I said, do, if you're inspired at 1:00 in the morning and, my kid's asleep, and I can go run and like write a part, like it's kind of got some benefits, So.
Right. And that's not going to be, even if it's something where what you're doing isn't necessarily going to be like the final of whatever, you're able to get the idea out and get it down and continue moving forward, which I think is kind of underrated in the process.
Yeah, I guess for me, like having sort of like, I look at all of these as like templates. Like I have I'm happy with all the parts and everything. And like Jeff and Sam said, like it's not done. All the glue isn't there yet, but I can at least work out all the like where like I'm kind of like happy with all the basis of the parts, and then I've found that I think that's going to be really efficient once we do get back into the studio, because like all the grunt work is done, like and just like we can kind of make all the the glue happen and make it live and stuff like that, and I'm looking forward to that. That's really fun. Yeah.
When you talk about the releases that have come out this year, what led to the split with the Thought Leaders? How did that come to pass? And that can mean anyone that wants to field it question.
How did that happen? I mean, we played with them a couple times, and they're great guys. A couple guys from the Mass, and great band. I've actually heard what they're working on too, and it's really good. Watch out for 2021 with those guys. But I don't know. It's good synergy. They're out. They don't really fit into the Bay Area scene either. So I don't know.
Well, we've known like Andy. Like Porch played, my other band Porch played with the Mass, like back in the noise rock picnic, Toxic Beach days, man, as you remember well, Conan.
I have no idea what you're talking about, sir.
But yeah, I mean, we've kept in touch, and I think we've all been really big fans of them and of Andy. Andy actually put out, I think around that same time, he put out one of my old bands, High Powered Leroy, from back in the mid 90s on his label. And we'd started talking, and was like into doing it. And they were, I think, like suffering for, like, they really wanted to have physical product. And at that point, like it was a plan to do, like a 7-inch and stuff. And then obviously everything happened. So we may still do that at some point, but it just was sort of a fun thing to kind of combine in our promo and everything else. And I think our bands fit together in a unique way. And they augment each other, I guess.
That's one of the reasons I brought it up, is because it is kind of like the Tunnel's sort of like a hard band to pin down in some ways, but it actually seemed like I was like, oh, those two bands kind of, they slot well together. Like if you were categorizing things, in the record store by style, like it wouldn't necessarily be like out of the ordinary to have those two bands be in the same bin, just to use completely overused analogies from my days as a record store employee.
for sure.
Yeah. So and then the idea there, and so that was that was about at the launch of COVID, if I remember correctly. That was like right after. That was like early April or something along those lines. Does that seem right?
I think that's about right. Yeah. It was like early 2020, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
February,
And so
something
that,
like
yeah. So at that point, and correct me if the timeline's wrong, you'd already recorded the stuff that would end up on Nightfall. So that was like basically late 2019. Is that accurate?
So that was the same session that we did. So Nightfall was the 3 songs, and so we did 4 songs with Tim Green, and that was one of the ones from that session. And so we wanted to keep that one that was fit really well with their songs, so we kind of did that separate. And then we did Nightfall EP with just the other 3 from that session.
That was that. And if I remember correctly, I think you mixed that, right, Sam?
So we went up there and tracked and did everything, and then
with Tim.
And then with Tim, and then I ended up mixing him. He was recovering from he had a really bad back kind of stuff. And so we wanted to get it out. And so, we did we mixed it.
And I think we definitely I've recorded with Tim a handful of times, and I, love going to the barn and hanging with him. Definitely the mixing thing for us is
play a couple saw blades, maybe, Yeah,
it's a blast, man. It's awesome. But yeah, the mixing thing, I mean, because of the distance, tracking there makes perfect sense, and and he ended up doing the mastering for Shapeshifter as well to kind of tie it all together. But the mixing process takes more time, and it's definitely difficult to haul up, and for us logistically, it just was more efficient and made more sense for us to do it on our own. Yeah.
Well, it's not that we're prima donnas or take a lot of time mixing and stuff, but it's just we like a lot of real time big box effect kind of stuff and a lot of knob tweaking and stuff like that. So that kind of comes into the mixing part of it, a lot of that stuff.
I was wondering, and normally I only do this with a band just for a record, but I think that the songs are interesting enough and they kind of happen at such just a crazy time that I think that EP kind of maybe fell by the wayside a little bit. But I'll just go through song by song with each one, and we'll kind of talk a little bit about either the recording process of it, the writing process of it, any kind of banal minutia, if there's anything lyric wise, et cetera, and just kind of get everybody's thoughts, and we can do this in a round robin if you like. But I think that's the Nightfall EP is sort of underrated in the Tunnel Pantheon, so I'm kind of curious to go through with that first. Is that cool with you guys?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start. Sam, we'll start with you. Tell me about the title track, Nightfall.
So it's I really love old pedals, and that the bass line just kind of was it just screamed for that pedal. And so that's it was something that I would just kind of start playing that over and over, and had a weird time thing that they would say, play that song, and I would do it incorrectly every time. I don't know. Can you incorrectly play something? I guess you can't incorrectly play it unless you want to repeat it. So then I finally got it right, and then they just ran with it. Yeah, it's like an Earth Mover song. It's really good. Just kind of set a course and just kind of goes. I love it.
Kind of grind on it a little bit.
Yeah.
Michael?
For that song? Or
yeah, we're doing song by song here.
Yeah, I mean, as I remember it, we had done a couple different we had started on that one a couple, it had come into the fray a couple times, your original part, Sam, and we kind of let it sit for a little bit and then came back to it. And it was, I think, almost one of those ones where we weren't totally sure we were going to record it for that or not. And then kind of toward the end, we kind of came up with some of the other parts that tied it together, and it just kind of fell in. And it was one of those where it's we'll record it and maybe it'll turn out, maybe not. And then I think we all kind of liked how it fit. And it definitely had a more of that swaggery AmRep,
Yeah.
James Brown thing.
yeah. It's got some swagger. Yeah. You wouldn't. James Brown wouldn't be the first thing I would think of, but I know what you mean when you say that. Like,
but if you hear Michael's drum track soloed, it's so good.
It's
remix
sure.
Of that. The James Brown remix.
Just the dance remix. That'd be awesome.
Yes.
So Jeff, tell me your thoughts on that song.
Yeah, I mean, we can be pretty OCD when it comes to recording and planning and mapping things out, and that one is kind of unusual because we were not sure we were going to do it. We're like, only if we have time, and it kind of came together as a train wreck in tempo, and it like worked for some reason. So that is unique for us. Also, that is probably the most I will ever unintentionally sound like David Yao. It probably sounds like a dead-on imitation of David Yao, but it's because of this mic that Tim had. He said was Ian Spinonius's a relic of his days with him, and I think he must have busted it or something, so it was like semi-functional and kind of distorted. And I sang with it pretty much like inside my mouth, and so there was no distortion applied. It was just.
Yeah. Wonder why it turned out that way. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's cause meet effect. Yeah.
I don't know if we had sanitizer there, but that was in 2019.
I was gonna say those are in the before time. So
yes.
Luckily, any lyric notes or anything along those lines on that one, Jeff?
It's another variation on a storm is coming type of song. I think I have a lot of those. Yeah.
I remember being in the control room with that one, and you were like belting it out, and remember turning around going, "What the fuck is that? That's awesome!"
Nice. That's a nice feeling. But it's funny that one wasn't originally it wasn't like envisioned as like, hey, here's the title track. Here's like the thing that's going to anchor the release. It was more like, oh, we'll get to that if we have time. Originally, was that?
Yeah, the weird thing is, I think that's the one where I wrote the vocals. I wrote the lyrics sitting on Tim's back porch, which is pretty unusual for me.
Mm.
So,
did you find that the surroundings helped there? Meaning that the lack of city noise and distraction, things along those lines.
Yeah.
Or is it more like I'm gonna have to yell something into a mic pretty soon? I better figure something out.
Yeah, probably a combination of that with a little somewhat relaxation of the cats roaming around. That always makes me feel better.
Assuredly. So let's go on to Reckoning then, which is the second one. We'll start again with Sam. Can you tell us a little about that one from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean that was actually I think that was with another a new pedal that I just got, and I was just kind of flashing through one of the ones after practice one time, and I do a 2 amp system so like all the main stuff goes through one, and then I have a old Fender Twin for all like where a second guitarist would do just like noisy stuff or just like background kind of stuff, and it was like, yes, it reminded me of like 1984 meets Tron, like with the big. It sounded like the intro thing. It sounded like some sci-fi dystopian reckoning thing. And so I played it for them, and we kind of just started fleshing it out, and the beat and the guitar and the vocal, everything is perfect. Yeah, I love that song.
I meant to ask about the second amp thing because that's something that's a relatively atypical for bass that I've seen. I've seen the splitting the high and the low end kind of thing, but utilizing it more as almost like noise soundscaping or something along those lines. That's a little atypical.
Well, it's how bass amps just should be to me. So it's like when people play bass amps and they have horns in it, it's like, no, you just can't do it. And if you're like, if you're doing and I love reverb, like spring reverb, it's just my favorite. So even like putting some in that and just doing the volume up a little bit just to give it that's how to me it's supposed to be. And it's like, I'm kind of a purist with the number of pedals that I use for my main signal, which is stupid considering all the other stuff. So it's like I try to keep that kind of pure, and then all the nonsense in the other thing. And if it doesn't work, and it's like, fuck it, it doesn't work.
So it's the nonsense amp is what you're trying to tell me.
It's nonsense amp.
Okay. Yeah. Michael, Reckoning. Tell me about it.
Well, I guess what I remember of Reckoning is Sam would beatbox like the beat and basically just say it goes like this, and then you bring this in, and then that, and then add that, so it was kind of like super simple. But I think I guess it started off more like almost mechanical, and then like when we started playing it live, like it got a little bit more of the, I don't know, like more of the backbeat thing, and it's probably one of my favorite songs to play live. And I think it goes over pretty well with people too, in general. I mean, it's sometimes depending on the sound person in the club, like Sam's tone can get a little crazy, but we won't talk about that. And sometimes it's good, but it's definitely one where we kind of burst off the stage in a good way, generally. Yeah. The syncopation of it was definitely challenging to do recording wise. And, I will say we probably did a little bit of magical editing with Tim to make it all tight.
Little stew magic.
But yeah. But it was. I like how that one turned out. For sure.
Jeff?
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing that I want to say, if it wasn't clear, is that despite the machine-like beats that we like Michael's playing is like in every way superior to machine, because for some reason a human like hitting those beats with those kind of distinct thunderous spaces in between the beats, like to a click. We actually have been playing to a click a lot the past couple of years. But just having like a talented human like pounding out those tribal attacks, like it's just so great. And that's what that song is about to me, besides Sam's monstrous tone. I mean, I was like, I don't think I have to do anything in this song when I heard that tone. but I will.
No more room.
I'll bring an ice pick and I'll stab every once in a while. I think
there you go. There you go. And how about for lyrics for that one?
Yeah, it's a dystopian type of song for sure, but the lyrics are more about kind of like a urban biomachine saga gone wrong. The biomachine finds something in an alley and takes it home, thinking it's innocent, and it turns his life inside out, more or less. I think that's what I'm singing about.
Almost seems kind of like Tetsuo Lake or something. You think that's what you're thinking about? Is that what you said? Who would know? Who would be the authority in that situation?
That's exactly right. Very Tetsuo Lake.
Yeah, that's kind of, well, and also the video for it kind of has not those vibes especially, but it has like vibes of like that era where it's got like this sort of low res is the wrong word, but sort of distorted TV effects and things along those lines. It's got those it's got that feel. So it's to me that's kind of where my thought goes to it, being an art damaged weirdo.
That Shinya Tsukamoto is a huge influence, and not only his cinema but his themes and the music. That great like late 80s like early sampler percussive stuff is so good.
Pretty unique. So let's go ahead and let's go to the third song, Ashen, which we'll start with Sam here. We're gonna maintain the round robin order. God damn it.
That's right.
So that was like a little riff that Jeff brought in, and you're just kind of playing it. And I think the original one that he had was really, it was just like super, super pretty. And then we just played it and we just started kind of adding stuff to it. I think we each took turns kind of adding. And just to me that it was just, it was so pretty that the bass line that I put to it just kind of, it felt right. Just nice and like an open plane where the lyrics tell the whole story, kind of follow around that, like not a lot of changes, just kind of focus on the lyrics and the singing.
Michael?
I think for me that one was like having spent a bunch of time playing drum machine type parts. I guess for me that one like had like it's not the kind of drum part that I would like would standardly make, but it has like it's just a pulse. It's basically just a pulse that like pretty much stays constant, and then the layers come up and like through the song and stuff like that. And I think one of the things with these guys in general that I think that plays into is just like I kind of used to have a mentality like where the drums need to be complicated, the drums need to be doing this and that, but a lot of times they don't, and they just maybe to give the song what it needs, they just need like a really basic kind of foundation. And for me, that one was that, and it's almost more the meter and the constancy. And I definitely like for me, there's little just like notes, 4 or 5 notes where it like hits off of where Jeff's vocals like kind of transition from one spot to another that like make it like, it's kind of like the only thing that matters is those few notes, and then everything else is just foundation pretty much. But I mean, I don't know. For me, I think that's probably one of the best from an arrangement standpoint. I would say I like the arrangement of that song from all the songs on that EP. By far, I think it's one of the best songs. Yeah. So.
Do you find that, kind of expanding on that idea, that having to intentionally play something maybe more simple and to serve the song rather than, kind of going for the, big heroic rush time signatures or whatever along those lines that you maybe would want to go to if you were just thinking as an academic exercise? Has that been a challenge at all, or is that something that you think you fell into relatively easy?
I mean, I'd say it's something I probably should have learned a long time ago, to be honest. But it's just like it's like a mental state thing, and I mean, I think it's been good. I mean, I've really appreciate the songwriting. In many ways, the songwriting's a little bit more not like verse chorus kind of like structured, and then then I'm some of the stuff I've done in the past, and so I mean, I think it was a little bit challenging, but more so in my head than anything. And I think I mean, I don't know, I definitely feel like in that way I've grown in working with these guys and writing. And I mean, it's really, when it comes down to it, it's all about the song, right? So
right. Jeff, what are your thoughts on this particular song?
I was just lost in thought thinking about those drum accents that Michael was talking about, the echo of the vocals. Those are so great. I love those.
Yeah. It hits very nicely in the composition. Yeah.
The first time I heard him, I was just like, oh my God, he's listening and doing that. Wow. Okay. I mean, that's probably a harkening back to maybe some of the older Tunnel styles where the vocals were like front and center and like lots of words to say, story time type of thing, which used to be my thing. But like now I honestly appreciate the musical beast that the three of us create more than the literal stories told with words. So I try to keep the words like where they make sense with the music now. But this one is an exception and just run off at the mouth and stuff. But
story time is a good way to charitably explain that type of lyricism.
Yeah.
But like coming from the great trend of like, allegory and like I'm thinking of like, like Nick Cave or something along those lines, right? Where it's like there's you start off one place, you end at another. Tom Waits, things along those lines.
It's definitely one of those, yeah. And with a suitably, I suppose, Rolandus Howardish guitar thing, which I think metamorphosizes into Hot Snakes by the end, which is...
I was going to say, it gets a little more, a different kind of aggro near the end. Not that there's anything wrong with Rolandus Howard at all. Don't get me wrong, but it is... There is definitely, when bands are doing like the big black birthday party, there's sort of like certain recognized tropes, and I do appreciate that you guys... color outside the lines when it suits you.
That's right. Gotta surprise ourselves at least.
Right. So then last song in that EP is Last Exit. Sam, you want to start us up on that one?
Yeah, so that's I've just always had a fascination with like David Lynchy, open roads, and like Mojave Desert kind of stuff. So that's like the bass line and tons of Fender reverb on that too. Just I just think of an empty highway and like the last exit. And so it's like we started playing that and kind of building, and Jeff puts the cool little vulture guitar lines in there. It's perfect. I love that song. It's we've kind of fucked ourselves with so many different styles of music that when we have, I don't know, we don't really have like hardcore fans for one style of stuff, and it kind of hurts us. But like doing songs like that, I never regret doing really slow. We call it our suicide set. So like we could do a whole like
the band or the concept.
Oh, I didn't even know there's a band called the Suicide Set. Really?
Oh no, the band Suicide is what I was thinking.
Oh,
your
no,
Suicide set.
Oh no, which we all like. But like our Suicide Set, like just really slow, just kind of more gentle songs, which are still, I think, a good part of our stuff. But yeah, that song is it came together really fast, and yeah, I love that.
Michael, thoughts?
That song is about the most fun thing to play live that you could find. For me, like, I love it's basically just a vibe, and like where Sam's basically the foundation, and I can just pretty much, it's like Jeff's vocals and the drum hits are like kind of like playing off each other, and it's literally different like every set, like every time we play it live, which I really dig. I always remember we actually played that to the Click and we recorded it, and Tim made, I can't remember the exact comment, but he said because it has just so much space, and he said, I've never heard a band like basically that I've never heard a song like that with that much space like feel that natural but played to the Click, which I found is a really nice thing to say.
Yeah, that's a very esoteric but awesome compliment for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely it's a fun one. I love that style of stuff, and it like I said, it's just different every time we play it, which is pretty awesome depending on the mood.
Jeff?
Yeah, we don't do very much of that, and as far as like leave things totally to chance, and there's some structures in the kind of syncopated vocal lines and stuff to give me at least a little something to hang on to. But
so you're not totally lost on the highway.
Yeah, but man, when it works, like I think the last time maybe that we played live, I think we played once in 2020 in January at the Eagle, and man, that song really works that time. I kind of like felt like I woke up from something at the end of it, and I think that was a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say so. Any lyrical notes or anything?
That song is very stream of consciousness and very much about the percussive syncopation of the notes. A lot of it is just gasps and sighs and croaks and stuff. Like for some reason we had to choose among vocal lines. I remember at Tim's, and some of them were backwards, and it was pretty nonsensical, right? You guys, like my words, they were.
Well, we did the. So we added the backwards reverb in, so it's like gets it all nice and poltergeisty. But and then so we had to track it. We had to record it with that. And we were just listening to just the backwards reverb part, and we're like, sweet, it's getting there.
It was definitely like channeling something outside of me, is what it felt like. So I'm not sure. There are words. There really are English words. At least right before we recorded it, they took the form of English words, right? Yeah.
Well, and that's almost, I mean, there's a long history of that too. I mean, going all the way back to, well, even before recorded music, but I was thinking specifically of like Stooges and stuff like that, like, and having like just something that sounds like it should go there, and then like not necessarily putting too much effort into imbuing the meaning into it until it actually already happens. So there's certainly a rich tradition.
Yeah, I mean, his syncopated grunts and stuff are just perfection.
Syncopated grunts with a Z. What's up with the album art? Did that? It's a very it's evocative. You know, it's 3 colors. There's like the blue, red, white. It almost looks like a negative of some kind.
Yeah, I think we went back and forth on that a bunch of times, various ideas from different people. So it was definitely a collaboration between all of us. But the trees are an actual tunnel through the trees back where I used to live. When I used to live in Fairfax, you can go up into this like open space up on this like abandoned fire road, and somebody like cut this tunnel through the trees that's been slowly growing over it like that. That's a real place.
It almost reminds me of, did you guys ever see Tales from the Dark Side? Like the opening for Tales from the Dark Side. Do you guys remember that show?
The best. That's the best. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff and I,
those vibes.
The end of Prince of Darkness, Jeff and I have always totally blended on that. It's the John DeCarpenter. It's not one of his more famous ones.
Oh yeah. I actually completely forgot about it. You're right.
Total goosebumps at the very end when he has the like the Antichrist is like cloaked and it's getting like transmission, and they're trying to focus in on it, and it like they like hint at it, and at the end you see, oh, so good, it's so good. But that kind of like busted up like 80s like fucked up VHS stuff like that. I love that. I love it.
Seems to fit the aesthetic of the music too, because it's not like the music is solidly rooted in the 80s, but it definitely gives a nod, with certain homages within, even though it's certainly coming at it from a more present-ish take on those same vibes, which is interesting that like I don't feel like many bands explore that, or if they do, I'm not aware of them. Let's put it that way. Which kind of led me to who do you think of as like-minded fellow travelers for the tunnel? Like who are the tunnel bands that you have common cause with, that you feel that there's an affinity, mutual admiration society, things along those lines?
I'll throw in.
Please do.
Wayland Storms for sure. But unfortunately, I think most of the bands that we would like, a lot of them are not on the West Coast. But it is what it is, right?
Reptoid, I think, as like a
for sure
has a who gives a fuck, this is me, play it kind of same style as that. And we played with him a couple of times, right?
Yes, many. In fact, I think that's where we met. Michael is playing PRF West with Reptoid, same night as Reptoid.
That sounds familiar. That was the Fire bass player night, I think, if I remember correctly.
It was.
Not for the tunnel, but for but in a hashtag never forget moment, that was
that's right.
If you need a cultural shorthand and you were there, you know exactly what that means, and it's not for you.
It's true. There's another local band called Flat Black that we played with.
Oh, right.
Sure.
Who do sort of a metal industrial fusion that I like a lot. But otherwise, like other bands that I was lucky enough to see them before we couldn't see anything was like Bambara. I really like what they're doing. And I guess a little bit before that, seeing Daughters was pretty. I felt like there was a similar vibe there. And then also we were lucky enough to play with Musk, another local band that we love, and our great noise quartet from New York City, ex Lubricated Goat and a lot of other things, Live Skull. Yeah, good stuff. Really good.
I think that's kind of been a problem that we can't have, like we were talking about doing, tours and stuff like that, to have like a good sister band to like no matter what, we can play with these guys kind of thing. It's always been, I guess it depends on what songs we're playing or whatever. I don't know. It's tough.
Well, because it's almost like you could hang out with the Release the Bats crowd for sure, and you could hang with a more grindy noise rock band. Like it's sort of like if the right set, you could play a lot of different kinds of shows, but all of it is sort of like a almost a niche of a niche. And it's interesting that, to me, what makes the tunnel interesting is that you guys don't do a strict genre thing. But of course, if you spend your time catering to Conan Neutron, you probably will not be a great success. Yeah, telling it like it is, y'all. But I mean, that said, I mean, there's also, folks that don't mess around with like the GS Lizard or like the AMREP stuff that can totally get down to like the dark vibes, and certain bands that, again, the Birthday Party as an influence, I think, has only grown amongst, especially the kids and things along those lines. But the reason why I brought up the the fellow travelers bit is because it is interesting that to me there isn't a lot of bands that sound like what you guys are doing. It's not to say there isn't a precedent for it. It's not to say that it isn't it's completely undefinable or anything along those lines. It just feels like there's, again, if tours were possible, it would be more like, hey, we're just going to play with bands we like rather than try to find bands that sound like us and see what happens.
I would also say, I mean, I could a lot of some of the new stuff actually on your top 20 list, like Heads and Hey Colossus. I mean, I could definitely see us like fitting with that type of stuff for sure. But like Sam said, I mean, we have luckily enough material to where we can kind of tailor what type of stuff we do, and it sometimes makes us look like a different band at a different show, but yeah.
Totally.
What do you do, man? It keeps it interesting. Yeah.
The many moods of the tunnel.
That's right.
Yeah, I saw that list too. Oh,
go ahead.
And you remind me of Exhalants, because that was a good show. We played with them.
Oh yeah.
That was fun.
We almost lined up one with the new Primals guys when they were, I think it was like a couple years ago, and I ended up going to see them, but we couldn't play because of logistics and schedules and stuff. And I think we're different. They definitely get in. I don't think you made it to that show. But they're amazing, and they definitely challenge the audience. And I mean, there's a lot of elements I think that they're different than us for sure, but definitely a lot of shared elements that I think works together well. Yeah.
There's a lot of vibe to what New Primals do, and they have that sort of a little bit noise rock, a little bit post punk kind of element, and it's not in a way that when you say that it normally means a certain thing, much in the same way that like it used to be that if you say, oh yeah, they sound like the Pixies, you would know exactly what I mean, because it means like, oh, they do that one thing that the Pixies do. And then I remember one time that I saw a band that reminded me of the Pixies, but I made sure to preface it by saying, but not the way you think that means. Which was very important to me, because it's just, unfortunately, there's that cultural shorthand, right, where you say a thing and then like something immediately comes to mind, and you can't unring the bell after that's been done. And it doesn't necessarily tell the whole story. But it does seem interesting to me that there is more of a, the noise rock post-punk bands that are kind of bringing the vibiness back. And I think Heads is a great example, especially that last record, New Primals. I like the vibe, so what can I say? For sure. Do you guys want to do the same thing with the Shapeshifter stuff? I know it wasn't initially it was 3 EPs, if I remember correctly, right? It was 3 EPs kind of reimagined. Before we do that, actually, talk to me about the sequencing, because it's not like it's not necessarily chronological order or anything along those lines. You actually resequence those as a record, right? How did that come to pass? How did those decisions get made?
Yeah, I mean, I think we traded around different versions. We had like candidates, and the one that won was this one. Yeah, there was some problem with doing it sequentially. Oh, I think it was because it was 2 sides of a record, maybe part of it, and we didn't.
Because you can only do a certain amount of time before you start losing high end, I think, if I remember correctly.
Right.
Was it a time consideration?
Right. But yeah, like everything else, we had many tunnel comedian meetings until we were all happy.
The meetings will continue until everyone is happy.
I think Punisher as the lead off in side B was pretty funny, because it's just talk about a niche within a niche. but we like it, so we let Offside be with it.
So let's talk little bit about that as a record. So we'll do the same thing we did with the EP. We'll just song by song. We'll go. Jeff, you can go first this time. Michael, you just look at me in the middle. Sorry, that's the drummer's conundrum. So let's start it off with Mercury. Tell me about Mercury, Jeff.
I love that song. We that's one of the few that I can think of. Well, it's one of the songs where I sent a demo almost fully formed for the first half, and then these guys completely tore it apart and reassembled it for the second half, and I love it. I don't think it would have been really boring, I think, otherwise. So this song makes me happy.
Michael?
That's my tempo, man. That's all I have to say. It's 80 and it's in 3. It's just perfect, man. It's another one. It's a blast to like where I can kind of not wander, but sort of move through it and weave through where like Sam's very like foundational. And then it's got like really fun, like the sort of like the bashes and the slams as it gets through it. Like, but it's still, that was the first one I think that had that swagger that sort of is similar to like Nightfall and Punisher and stuff like that. Like it's got kind of a sway to it that I really like a lot. And that was a fun one to record. Definitely one that was pretty stable in our set, I think, for a while as well. When there were sets.
Do you guys remember when there were sets? Sam.
So I remember him when he sent the little demo thing, and so like the names that we give songs, sometimes they don't make it all the way through. But if I hear something for the first time or see a name, it always kind of I get too into like visual stuff, and so I wanted to have like a molten tone where it's the bass is so blasted out that it's almost like I'm playing fretless. So just because it just kind of keeps going and just like it churns and churns. Yeah, I love that song. If I can get the beginning right, then I'm set. I'm ready to go. Oh, three.
Well, that's the one that has like the spaceman watching the screen with the video footage.
That
right?
from Mario Bava, another great influence.
It works. Our next song is Membrane. Tell me about Membrane.
Membrane.
Oh, do you have any lyrical notes? I forgot to ask about that specifically. Sorry.
It's about a powerful female. I think that's all I can say.
All right. Fair.
That's all I know. Membrane. Shoot, it's hard to go first. I would say that is another very influenced by Mr. Yao and the Boys. No getting around that. I hope we give it a little bit of something different, is all I can say. It's super fun to play live.
Somebody said, Jesus Lizard is like our Led Zeppelin. I was like, yeah, I can back that. in all the ways, in the ways of like they made, a bunch of timeless records, and in the ways that they're certain style characteristics that are immediately discernible, and the ways that there are some bands that like, oh, you're like the bar band version of Jesus Lizard. Okay. Yes. And that is definitely not bar band Jesus Lizard, to be clear. But
okay.
Figure amongst friends, I can talk a little freely here. Again, Protonic Reversal after hours. I'm not telling tales out of school. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. Michael.
That's another one that's like super fun live. I feel like that probably one of the first ones when Sam and I started really clicking. Really, like it's very sharp and like it it has like the stops and you have to jump right back into the groove and stuff. And it felt like it was one where Sam and I were starting to really like play together a lot better. Cause like when you do it right, it's kind of like you kind of step back and go, wow, damn, that was was how it should be. But yeah, and it's definitely probably one of the more like kind of straighter AMREP-y sort of things, but which is always fun. So,
I mean, do you ever feel like you're compelled to want to change it up or like make it more complicated or different just to get away from that kind of sound, or do you feel like that you can trust that the constituent parts of everything are gonna kind of be its own thing?
Yeah, I mean that one I just see that more as that's more like a pocket song. Like it definitely has its like its edge to it, but I mean just how it like Jeff just like jumps at the breaks with the vocals, and it's very like this definitely doesn't need any like, hey, add that beat or change that time or anything like that. Like it's kind of more caveman-y in a lot of ways, which I've actually been really enjoying to do with. I mean, it's really fun live, and it's just kind of what it needs.
Sam?
Yeah, I mean, when I started playing the lick, I was hoping it was not like a make or break thing, but when Michael got that, I wasn't sure if it was going to be one of those things I just play and like nothing's going to ever happen from it. But he nailed it. And when the part got it, and we like would sync in together, and I remember we would just have practice sometimes. Like Jeff, just hold on a second, and we would just play it over and over and over, verse, and then it got in. It's like sweet, that's it, super cool.
And Sam, you had that thing you did on one of our early rehearsals on the recording from the rehearsal. You like did an 80s dance remix of it, and that ended up writing that part of the song. You like kept you put a lock groove in the middle of the song, and we ended up using it.
Yeah, and recreating a digital edit for to get it. Yeah, that's right. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, that's cool.
So the idea was you were going to do like the dance remix and like, hey guys, check this out, and then that's ended up being something like, actually, let's use that in the actual arrangement.
Yeah, we've tried something like if we practice, I have just a little recorder, so like I'll take it home and put it on there and just like EQ it a little bit or do a little master thing and then send it. And so sometimes if there's like Michael's laughing between songs or Jeff says something silly, I'll take and like do it down an octave or repeat it for like 3 minutes and like put it afterwards. And then, for that, there was just, everything was good up until a certain point. We're like, oh, what if we did this? And just kind of space filler. And we're like, oh, sweet. Yeah, let's try that. Yeah, that worked.
Do you feel like its placement of the record was that intentional that ended up there? Because that's one of the ones that you recorded with Tim Green, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, for me, it was just like Mercury, the beast that it is definitely like going to put certain people to sleep or traumatic stress with them out of consciousness. And so like Membrane is supposed to be like, wake up.
Well, yeah, and I guess what I'm driving at is with sequencing. When there's a couple schools of thought, which is that if you start kind of like a little more, for lack of a better term, kind of slower, then you got to kind of pick up the pace afterwards. Whereas if you start off with a flat out ripper, unless you're going to pull like a Hot Snake's third album, you maybe should take it down a notch at some point instead of just relentless nuclear assault or something. So then tell me about song 3 then, which is Death's Request, which is for someone that had to go to speech therapy for a long time. It's a very difficult song title for me to say.
It is a tongue twister. Something completely different. I mean, we all are big like Bauhaus fans and that sort of thing. So it comes out there.
Yeah, don't say.
We
really?
said you don't have to be ashamed for this song.
Let your vampire wings fly.
Yeah, I mean it's really pretty. Sam's bass line is so pretty, and I tried to be as pretty. I mean that's like a song that didn't work for the longest time, and then once we got the feel. It's really fun to play live. I guess we keep saying that.
Well, it's good that you like your songs. I mean, that's nothing wrong with that.
Not a bad thing. Yeah.
So when you're going down the Bauhaus hole, as we will now henceforth call it, do you ever think lyric wise? Like, do you ever get self-conscious about that, or do you have to get in a certain mind state to deal with that, or do you kind of go against type at all ever?
I mean, only in the sense that it would be boring to imitate their lyrical patterns or styles. To me, it wouldn't feel like I was doing anything. And plus, I get nervous making sure I was doing it to honor the spirits of whoever in the Batcave. So yeah, no, I think it's pretty much my normal lyrical content. Death is, I believe, requesting that you show up in formal dress at a certain date. So that's not good. That's kind
of formal dress is required.
Yeah.
Michael.
Yeah, not a whole lot to add. I do remember that we had a lot of debates in typical Tunnel fashion as to whether the first beginning of that part when we recorded it needs to be exactly halftime to the rest of the song, or whether that was like super critical and important.
Yeah.
And I think we ended up doing it that way, but when we play it live, obviously it doesn't quite have that. Yeah, I don't know. For me, I think that definitely showcases Sam's like tone and writing style, like where, I mean, basically I almost had to do nothing to just, again, it's just a pulse thing. Like he's filling up so much space and it's just like so pretty that like I can kind of seat into him and just sort of give it, like kind of keep it moving along and stuff. But he's covering a lot of ground and it makes it fun to play and to listen to for me. Yeah, so.
Sam?
Hey, I mean, that's anytime that comes into set, kind of like what you guys are talking about, like sequencing for songs, I'm so shitty at that, like picking a record, like what order. And I never help with set lists because I can never, would be so bad at it. Every time I'm like, oh yeah, let's try this set. But every time that we play that song, that's just like it feels really good. Really good playing that song. And yeah, we're so tired. I know we spent so long and so many different versions of going between 2 beats per minute faster or 2 beats per minute slower. Like this song sucks. I'm like, well, okay, well, let's try this. And it like changes it so much. And that's funny that Michael said about the beginning thing too. Cause it's like, cause I have to start it. So live, it's like, okay, hold on, Turbo Town. We're going to slow this down. We're gonna
you have to think about it differently.
Yeah.
You have to give it a little thought.
Yeah.
It's crazy now how much we sense differences of 1 or 2 beats per minute. I never thought I would see that day.
It does change the feel though, and that is something that some bands may or may not acknowledge that, but all you have to do is hear like a live album for a band where they're like, "Whoa, are they like late for something? Like what's going on?" Trying to get this done in record time. It does make a difference. It does make a difference. So then, Plasma Den is the so that'd be end of side A, Plasma Den.
Yeah. Do we record that with Jaeyoung Kim from McTurner's Hawkwind and Secret Shoes 3, and a super nice guy. That was a great experience. It's pretty schizophrenic song, changes gears constantly, but like in the same direction, I think. That's that would be another vampire song, I'm pretty sure. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Story checks out. Yeah.
That had a ministry part, as I recall. Let's take it from the ministry part.
I was going to say, I would know the part you're talking about if that's the one you're thinking of. Yeah.
Were you thinking of the Palehead part?
Oh, yeah.
The breakdown?
That song, I think, had a Palehead part and a ministry part.
Oh, look at you.
The only other thing I have to say is we had Zante's in between songs during that recording session, and it was really good. Indian pizza.
There you go.
I'm do the thing I don't always do, but I will say that after a take in a previous band, Italian Telephone, we had stopped for dinner and we had some really good Indian pizza, if you can believe it. And then, like, we did a take immediately afterwards. We asked, hey, what do you think about that take? I was like, sounds like you guys just ate a whole bunch of Indian pizza.
You need to be careful with this answer. It's true.
Which I still think about to this day, and always I keep in mind anytime recording of just like, okay, yeah, food decisions may impact tempo and feel of songs coming up. So having nothing to do with Indian pizza or Sundays, a little bit to do with it. Michael, Plasma Den, tell me about it.
Yeah, so that one and Overland were the first two that I would say we wrote all together. And we decided we'd go to, which I think was only about 3 blocks from our rehearsal space, our friend Jay Young's studio. And they both of those songs have just a lot of memories, I guess, in that they were like the first that in my mind that we were starting to wrote together and was starting
be
to
a
show
band.
Starting to show that
things,
was gelling and stuff like that. So for me, that's the memory with that. That song's got probably more funk in it for me than like any of our songs in terms of like the beat. And I always once again remember it live that the way Sam's part breaks, like the noise when we do the breaks, right? It gets like totally out of hand depending on which club you're in. Not that's not the best thing to note, but it has like a part where he mutes, but then it will again be different like every show, and sometimes sonically nice and sometimes otherwise, but
sometimes perhaps a little more chaotic. Entering some jazz parts in, perhaps.
Right. That's right.
I would add that Michael does a very good Russell Simmons Blues Explosion beat for much of that song.
I can hear it. Yeah, absolutely. John Hammond from Undetermined, by the way, in the chat box live, saying hello to everybody. So
hello.
Hey.
What's up, man?
So then, Sam, so tell me about that one.
So that, we just, those are, like Michael was saying, that we just started those songs and we wanted to get him recording and to commit to vinyl because I didn't want him to go anywhere. So I'm like, let's do this. We're gonna commit to 10 inches and you're locked in. That's it.
Yeah.
But that particular
contract is ironclad.
That's it. But Michael, the record, do it for the vinyl. But so that particular song, it's the first time I've ever worked with Jay Young before. And I remember I'm a huge Roger Taylor from Duran Duran, Roger Taylor, not Queen, Roger Taylor, and Power Station. And I love the big blown out drums. I'm like, this needs it. I want big, gasping, 1176 just blown out. And I think Michael just looked at me and Jay Young kind of looked at me and he did a pretty good job of doing it. And I wasn't sure if Michael, I'm like, yeah, that sounds awesome. I don't know if he was like, yeah, it could. So
worked out good, man.
Yeah.
Weirdly, not the first time the Power Station has been referenced on this show. Strangely,
good. Well, what a lot of people don't know is when, because it was just John Taylor and Andy Taylor went to go Power Station with the chick drummer, but they got Roger Taylor's advice from their Duran Duran bandmates on how to get that drum sound. So it's that's cool that he helped them with that, I thought.
Yeah, it's cool that he wasn't a dick. How many points do I get? Something along those lines. Okay, so then moving along with Shapeshifter, we have the song that also appears on the sure to be the Protonic Reversal bump, the top 20 of 2020. Punisher. So, Jeff, tell me about Punisher. You alluded to something earlier.
Brutal. I think it's like 3 beats per minute. And most of what I'm doing is my vintage Boss PS3 pitch shifter, just making it do stupid things. And it has a, it's a painful odyssey.
Odyssey of pain.
But it does have a cherub's part at the end to lighten the mood. Remember?
Oh yeah. Let's lighten it up with some cherub's part. Yeah, exactly. No, I know the part you're talking about. What were you thinking lyrically with that? Because like you mentioned, it is kind of like I don't know, like The Road or something sort of vibe. You know what I mean? Like very big.
There's like it's like a summoning, more or less. And when we recorded that at Tim's, we got the idea to do like a group chant. There's a group chant in the middle.
Yeah.
That involves bones and what's the other thing we chanted?
Flesh.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I think it worked. I think we did summon something that night. I forget what.
Well, obviously I like it, so it worked for me.
We summoned Conan.
That wasn't what we were trying to summon, but I guess that's fine too. Michael.
Again, I guess definitely my tempo. I love the slow and low. I think when Sam originally that original bass part with like lots of space, and then started hearing Jeff like texturing over the top, like it it's just my happy place. I guess the other thing I remember from that is that was probably the first reverse reverb, or at least at Tim's, with us. And I remember, I think we even took a video of just running just the reverse reverb, and it was like straight up Exorcist. Like, we were basically like, and to run out of the barn at Tim's at night, where basically it's just like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre could be right there. It was perfect.
Well, I mean, think about all those congressional hearings where there's like, oh, it sounds so evil just because it was backwards. It was, we come of that age where it's like it's not evil just because it's backwards, just because you think there's a satanic message there. But I think we're all kind of hardwired to think of that as a cultural shorthand. But it does sound cool for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
Sorry, that was me just doing a little bit of debunking the satanic menace, and don't get me started on D&D either. Sam, thoughts?
So that one that's the only song I play both amps like full tilt, like overdriven or like maxed out, and it's I've always wanted to scream through pickups, so it's like adding vocals through my basic bass guitar is kind of fun. That's it. They love playing it. It's okay to me. I mean, I like the song a lot, how it turned out and everything, but it's a cool song, I guess.
You guess, huh?
Yeah.
If you like that sort of thing.
Yeah, that kind of deal.
I think if Tim didn't indulge us as much as he did with the, he was saying like the backward guitar solo and the fifth octave down harmony with the troll flesh and bones stuff. I mean, it turned out way better than I thought it would, for sure. For sure.
Well, I'll tell you what, it makes for a good placement on a comp, because it definitely is, unless you're making like, a sounds of people eating things in the graveyard, you're not really going to, whatever comes next is going to be quite the contrast. So, it worked well in the Protonic comp. All right. So then, and you mentioned that kicks off side B. So was there ever sort of like, I mean, it's almost called Punisher. Was the idea going to start in by punishing the listener, or what was the mindset of starting by that? Was it a vibe thing or what?
And the next song is gonna be faster no matter what, even though it's only like 70 beats per minute.
Be kind of worried if it wasn't.
And I really like Sam's scream through his pickups. I guess that's a really nice way to start a record off.
Yeah, no, it definitely it gets the attention, and that's I saw Steve Albini do that in Big Black. Well, I didn't see it, but I saw a video of it, and that's the first time I think I'd ever seen that. And but I know other people that have done that before also. But it has to be certain types of pickups. It doesn't work for just anything, and it has to be a certain type of like the conditions have to be exactly right. Was there, Sam? Was there any kind of discovery process for how to do that particular thing?
Well, at a practice spot, everything is just fine. Like the levels are totally fine. I mean, for me, probably not for those guys. But I remember Tim. In Tim's area, there's so the first, he's got his control room. Then you go into the first room with guitar, and there's a sliding glass door. And then I have my main bass amp, and then another sliding glass door, and then the twin. And so that song gets pretty loud, and just I can see through into the control room when I'm getting it ready and all that. And I just see Tim shaking his head like slowly. And it's like, oh, dude, come on, man. I'm a fucking artist and we're paying you.
Just disapproving, like, I'm so disappointed in you.
No, that's like, I mean, that had to be that loud or whatever. But it's like, that's to get certain things.
What are you trying to prove?
It's just how it is when we practice and what I'm used to. And just, I guess it's, yeah. So, I'll never forget that.
That's funny. So then after that's Unseen Sea.
It's probably the only song that maybe you could bob your head to by the Tunnel.
It's a bopper. There's some bopping.
Bobbing. To me, it reminds me
bopping on the way to the graveyard, maybe. Who knows? or out.
The guitar reminds me of Cocteau Twins for some reason. But I think it also is pretty evil. But the Cocteau Twins could be pretty evil too. So, and I also think that I was allowed a little bit of my love of Prince to come through in some of the vocals on that one. So I enjoyed that one.
I could see it. Yeah. Why not? Michael, thoughts?
Love that song. Love the video too.
It's probably wasn't with the it was almost like DNA helixes or something spinning around, if I remember correctly. Like,
yeah. It's great.
Or there's actually a screensaver. It kind of reminds me of. I think it was called "Mystify Your Mind." If I remember correctly.
I think it was.
And you're damn right. I was saving that until I talked to you guys. Okay, Michael, continue, please.
Yeah, no problem. I guess the other one, that song is the way it flows, and for me, like, was definitely like we played that a couple times live. Where like it's one where if the tempo kind of starts to waver a little bit, like I have parts where I'm just sort of like falling off a truck for each in the chorus part, and then it rolls back into the verse, and like falling off a truck each measure. And definitely it's one where, if it falls off a truck too much and the tempo goes south, it just doesn't quite come across right. But yeah, that's one that since we started working on to the click, I remember we were playing it for a while and it was okay, like after we had recorded it, and then we wanted to bring it. I'm always one of the ones with that one to like, let's try to bring it back in the set. And we started working on it with the click, and it just kind of changed like dynamic and it was where I would see like Sam's head nod like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's right, that's how it should be. It's definitely a fun one for sure. Yeah. And in a weird way, it gets people moving too, I think, like, or at least swaying.
Swaying is movement. Swaying counts. It counts. Sam, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I love that song when it comes across right. It always reminded me of like a cool prom song, like a slow motion, like a really cool like prom thing. But for my
way cooler than my prom, Jesus.
And it starts off. I have to get just the note just right because it's a harmonic, and I have to use my other amp. So there's a lot of like tap dancing for me in that song. So I always get nervous before that. But yeah, when it comes off right, sonically and hearing when Michael hits his bell on the ride. I like that. That took a while to get I think that was actually the saw blade, maybe on that one too, or a black and something. But yeah, when it happens right and all the levels are there, it's an awesome song, fun.
I think are you thinking of your prom, Sam, or are you thinking of Carnival of Souls? Or is that what your prom was like?
No, because
are they different?
No, it's like slow motion, and it's like I don't know. To me, it's a really happy song. It's a happy, uplifting song to me. I like it.
You know, we played an adult prom with Lung in Alton, Illinois, which I expected to just be a horror show and a nightmare without a dream. and actually, everybody was very open-minded and cool, and it kind of changed my idea of what a prom could be. And what I didn't realize at the time was that it's like, oh yeah, these people are all music fans, and they're coming into us as like knowing that like this is going to be, hey, here's a new and interesting experience. So I'm going to back you that sure, dark prom that works just fine. Like anything you can sway to, you can prom to. That's my new like you can still learn new things at an advanced age. Well, you know what I mean. Kind of situation is that sure that song can be in the prom. Sam, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff Sawmill.
Another chronicle of a subhuman biomechanical beast doing his thing. I remember that guitar part is like just mostly a series of clicks that took a while to get right, and we went
weird sounding. Yeah, it's got a weird sort of vibe to it. Like
that's that PS3 again for one thing, but I think we went in with Phil Manley a couple times to get that right, because it doesn't make any sense unless it sonically works. Right. And for some reason, I remember Phil making a point to tell us that we weren't that weird. And I was like, I never said we were weird. I don't know what that conversation was about, but I remember that with that song.
Did he feel like you were maybe trying too hard or something? Like what does that mean?
I mean, we get excited about things like demonic clicks or whatever, but I mean, I think the confusion like that we talked about before is we're not like a genre of like crazy weird. Like that's not, we're not like Burmese. Like we're not skilled at being like pushing things to the farthest envelope of like where things can go sonically, but we do like to freak ourselves out. Maybe we just are freaked out more easily than Phil.
Yeah, there's apparently, you know, it's almost like I don't know who would be the Disco Stew style arbitrator of that situation. What
Disco
is or is not?
That's pretty weird.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm glad you guys got that reference, by the way.
Yeah.
Michael, thoughts on that?
Yeah, not a ton. I guess that one I always remember. We made a video of that song at the Golden Bull, and I hit like one snare drum crash like with Jeff's vocals, and he would always point me back to like, that's the most important part on that song. You have to hit that note.
You did it once.
And yeah, I think we've maybe a couple times in practice since then, but yeah, it like, that's another one where I get to just kind of, I don't know, for me, if I don't hear the tom part just kind of like rolls with Sam, and like it's almost one of those where if you don't hear the drums, if they become just one with the bass, then it's working right. And it's another one that's just real super simple structure, but just you know, like fun, like it's more about the setting the mood for sure. So.
Sam?
Yeah, so this one came about when we started playing it, and it just, when I had to name the song, just so we have something like after practice, it just sounded like a straight up murder site, like out in the woods, like some busted up old sawmill with just like bad things that have happened there. We're just like in the wood, just ingrained in it. And just the way the song goes and the big monstrous chorus parts. Yeah, I love playing that song and how it just kind of retards at the end and just goes down into the mush and just evaporates. Yeah, that song's badass. But I think that getting back to the Phil thing, I think we took those songs and we tracked there, but we had some issues too, right? Did we mix those ourselves too? Jeff, Michael, do you remember?
We may have.
I want to say I think you did. You ended up remixing them.
Yeah. So it's which songs did we do there? We did Death Request there. That
Mercury
song.
and Sawmill,
Yeah. So we ended up mixing those ourselves because it's kind of like what you guys were talking about. It's like we don't try to do weird stuff or be intentionally weird. We just want to capture the songs that we hear. And sometimes the people like in that time, it just wasn't coming across. And it's like, I don't know. Can you guys elaborate on that? I'm always the difficult person to deal with that. You guys can totally point fingers. I get it. I'm that guy.
We all heard it in our heads and we didn't stop until it was there.
Yeah. That what you said. That's it. Yeah.
I think it's important. I mean, there's no reason to try to rush or compromise it if you have an articulated vision. You want to see that vision through, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we are such massive superstars that like there's a lot of pressure on us to get done in time. But
I mean, we spent 9 months to send the drum sounds, so. Oh God! Remember in Some Kind of Monster where Hetfield comes in and announces that like he can only work until like 2 or something, and it's like, what are you freaking? Wow, amazing! Yeah. You guys have seen that movie?
Just such a head shake. Oh my God, that was just like first world problems, first like galactic world band problems, like space shuttle band problems. Like to be so stressed out. Yeah.
Friend of the show, John Congleton, said that the whole time he was watching, he just wanted to scream at the screen, "Break up!" So that goes to the last song on the record, as conceived as EP, but the last song that's on the record, Shapeshifter, which is Overland. Jeff, can you tell us about that one?
That's another pretty dark psychedelic Odyssey type of thing. The really interesting guitar stuff that ended up on that song was something I was trying to get Jay Young's attention in the control booth because I wanted to he was starting recording at the wrong place for a punch in. So I was just doing all this shit and I was trying to get his attention. And then he's like, when he was done, he like put up a song. He's like, "Sound great." I'm like, what? It couldn't have sounded great. I was trying to get you to stop the tape. But it turned out all right, actually.
Well, happy accident, huh?
Yeah.
That's
it's
amazing.
the part that I think of as the Welcome to the Jungle part now. It kind of sounds like the middle break. It sounds about a tenth as good as Welcome to the Jungle.
Yeah, okay. All right. Any lyrical notes there?
It's another summoning. Yep.
Say. All right. Michael, thoughts on Overland?
Yeah, I think that's another one that I started to like a lot more in the set. Like it almost after we recorded it, it kind of almost in my mind like came into its own live, which was kind of different. I always remember that one. I think it was it Phil Collins, Sam, where you were basically trying to like tell me how to like, with the basically I just get to do like a drum roll through the whole thing and like it's sort of like the kind of part that I wouldn't normally like. I would be like, "Oh, that's silly. I wouldn't do that." But it in the context of the song, it worked right, and I get to hit stuff really hard, and yeah, it's a fun one.
So the reference was Phil Collins.
So is that right? I can't remember. Maybe.
I think that might be one of the only songs I said don't do the Phil Collins fill in. It seems like all the other ones.
Okay, sorry, I'm remembering wrong. Yeah, sorry.
No, but wasn't there a reference to who's that guy who does Can't Live? That's
yes, Eric Carmen. You're right.
That's the reference.
I can't live if living is without you. Yeah.
That fill.
It's a little fill, but that is and that never happened, did it? Well, not pissed.
Damn.
Bring the record back. We're redoing it.
I bet the fill was still like 12 times longer than Michael would have preferred. I think it was a good compromise.
What? So, Sam, thoughts on that song?
So I'm glad that they let me use the title, because that was in you're talking about D&D. I play a game called Rifts, which is like a role-playing game.
I know Rifts very well, my friend.
Are you fucking with me right now? Are you?
I am not fucking with you. Let's put it this way. When I saw that Part Chimp Torch split, I was like, holy shit, because they used the same artist that does all the riff stuff.
And I remember when you commented on that too, I was like, does he know about that? So it's like I was running a long-term campaign, and you know about ley lines, they're the magical lines that all the spellcasters get their power from. And there's a train, a techno wizard train that can ride on top of that energy for free. It's no fuel, but it's powered by demons. And so in my game, it was called the Overland Express. And so when we started fletching the song out, it just and in my campaign, it was in what Canada would be like in the future. So it was all like Arctic tundra. And so every time we would start playing that song, it's like, oh, that's Overland Express for sure. That's what I see. And then how Jeff captured and doing the video for it and stuff that's really cool.
I appreciate the riff reference. Boy, that is definitely a Protonic Reversal first, for sure.
Riffs is the best. It's the best role-playing game. I mean, if you like D&D or all the other ones, Cyberpunk, I mean, you can get everything in that game. It's great.
Absolutely agreed. So, guys, this has been awesome. You did do Condemned Collapse afterwards. If you'd like, we could kind of walk through that one a little bit too. I think that one's a really interesting double single. Otherwise, we can do some other stuff if you're tired of talking about specific songs. But I think you guys, sometimes you can do this with people, sometimes you can't. You guys have stories behind them, so you can. But I'm not getting blood from a stone, which is good. Yeah. Would you rather talk about Condemned Collapse, or would you rather go someone else? It's a Saturday night. I'm feeling generous. Let's you guys tell me what you want to do here.
Well, I don't know of any stories offhand, but I can say that recording with Jordan was super fun. We recorded those two with Jordan, like everything in one day, and set up and it was a rush, but we were pretty proud of how that went. And it was super cool working with Jordan in Oakland.
Jordan, the mighty Reptoid, of course, as they as humans might know.
Yes.
And Kyle Spence mastered that, if I remember correctly, right? That's the fellow from Harvey Milk. Yeah. So some Vinkus, some other stuff that is not those two things. I guess what I'd like to know from you guys, and just kind of, I want to thank you guys for your time. This has been great. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. It's always difficult to do a full band together too, but I think you guys have come through like troopers, and this has been really cool. You're in a situation where, as we've established, you're a relatively unique band. Your sound can slot somewhat nicely with other acts, but isn't necessarily of a certain genre. You're not genre rock or anything along those lines. That can lead to interesting situations. And if we could just start off with kind of like a worst or just bad, negative, surprising, hilarious show experience. And then we'll do a round of those, and then we'll do a round of best, most surprising, pleasant, et cetera, et cetera. And in this case, what we're going to do is, Michael, you're going to actually start first on this one, okay?
Wow. Okay. Let's see. So we did a Halloween show.
Oh, God.
Santa Rosa, where we actually got paid. We got paid $800, which was a first for me. And we played 2 sets. So I think we played, was it 18 songs? So it was a lot. It was a lot. Like, we did a full 2 sets. And it was basically it was a car club, for a car club. And for me, I guess it was positive in that, like, wow, I actually learned like 17 or 18 songs with these guys, and we, could play them in a show, and it was kind of a monumental thing in that way. But it was one of those where we've all played them, where the audience was basically whatever audience there was sort of like not really sure why we were there, I guess. There was a DJ, and like the place was like where you couldn't, one of those where it was huge and you could go inside and outside and you could go all over, and it wasn't like super well attended. And like we had friends of Jeff's that, that knew the tunnel from long before, and thought we'd be perfect, but the rest of the car club wanted to basically just listen to the DJ spin like the latest like hip hop dance tune or whatever, and it was it was interesting.
Well, you guys are like, hey y'all, who wants to summon?
Exactly. Yeah, and I think the reason you think it wasn't well attended, Michael, is because everybody was trying to get as far away from us as possible.
Right.
I think there was actually a lot of people there. But the club were super classy and super pro and treated us really well, But it's just like there was a disconnect, and like we don't know any like hip hop pumping stuff, so like we pretty much had our set.
Yeah, we gotta do Land of 1,000 Dances. I mean, come on, like it's not gonna.
We got one prom song. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. It's more like a zombie sway than anything else, y'all. All right, so then that sounds like a classic. Jeff, we'll have you go second here. Tell me your show.
Sam, am I allowed to tell the Christian death story?
I don't even know that one. Oh,
involves a mask.
Can I preface it first?
Yeah, do.
Okay, so I had the night before we had a show, and it was a big deal for me. Well, he'll get into who it was and all that. But I had been out doing chemicals, and I had done some certain chemicals before this time too. So it was one of the first shows that I played with Jeff.
We're definitely Protonic Reversal after hours now, by the way. Go ahead.
And so, I mean, it's like the normal stuff that I would do, but I don't do these certain chemicals now, but so everything was just kind of normal. But for some reason, all the different ones kind of acted together and like formed a super chemical or something. It was, and I remember a little bit of it, but I don't even remember that night afterwards. So yeah,
that's a pretty good disclaimer.
So now you can go.
All right. Well, that's that was the prefacing statement, to be clear. Okay, gotcha. All right.
I don't remember what the band was calling themselves at that time, but it was former members of Christian Death, and it basically. Oh, and our friend Andrew from Slow Poisoner had this giant like paper mache head or something.
Oh, it was a green glitter mask, like this demonic green glitter mask. It was gorgeous. It's amazing.
So Sam, like, pretty much wearing not much else but this giant demon head, like causing a ruckus, and the Christian Death were not having it, or whatever. I forget what they're called, but the current spinoff, and there was like fisticuffs, almost fisticuffs, but it totally was not your fault, Sam. There was like some interpersonal thing going on within their band.
Was this during the show? Was it during the show? Or?
Sam literally walked into some interpersonal thing happening, and then there's Sam, this goofy head, half naked, like getting in a brawl between the people from this band. And
God, I'm sorry, I missed that.
And one of the guys had his bass above his head coming down up onto Sam, and like Pat or Dermot at the time like tackled him. Wow, that was a crazy night.
So
wow, so punch up at the Death Rock show, Jesus.
So Jeff, I'm gonna help fill in the story a little bit. So in the beginning, so this was so Valor, who took over for Christian Death after Roz Williams died. I'm a huge Christian, only Theater Pain changed my life. So Valor had a daughter, and she was the drummer for this band at the time. And so I was like boning up on like stuff to talk about when I got to meet him. And someone was saying some really inappropriate things about her. And, you know, she was youngish, but just like really inappropriate stuff. So I contacted her. I'm like, hey, this creepy guy on YouTube is saying some wacky stuff. And she's like, oh, it's so cool. Thank you. I'm going to report him and whatever. And so I remember when I got to the club, she was there. I'm like, hey, it's nice to meet you. And got a kiss and all that. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. She's super cool. And then so during the show, she, they were playing. And I remember there was a girl who's dancing in front, and I was getting like, oh, hey, what's up? And, we're both like, hey, let's dance. And
in
so
your giant mask head.
So I had underwear on and this glitter demon mask, but she was cool with it. And so
as one does, as was the style of the time.
And so we were like I wasn't like, we weren't like grinding on each other. Some just like dancing. And I guess the bass player who went on to later date the drummer girl, but he like freaked out and was like, oh, what the fuck, dude? And he comes up like acting like a frat guy. And he's like trying to swing his bass down on me. And I had the mask on, so I couldn't see anything. I just felt getting pushed. I'm like, what's happening?
No field of vision, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what, yeah.
To Andrew's credit, Andrew talked me down because I'm like, this is totally uncool. Like, talk about bands not treating each other well.
Yeah.
But like Andrew's like, don't worry about it. This is I can tell you this was incredible theater. You did well. And I was like, no. But he was fine.
From the theater of the absurd.
And Andrew knows theater. Andrew is theater.
Andrew lives theater. Yes. Wow. Okay. So that'd be hard to top. Technically, Jeff, that's yours. Sam, do you have anything? I think you can get dispensation if you can't think of another one. Beyond that, that's worth 2.
Because I'm like all things gear centric and like old gear stuff. There's this one song that I love playing, but the last 2 times we played it, it killed my amp. And they were different amps. And the song is called Deconstruction, which is appropriate in a terrible way because when a tube amp goes down, it's like at least $500.
Yeah,
so it's like
that's
I don't want to play the song, but it's weird. It's 2 separate amps and both like really bad timing on both. So we haven't played that song since. And that's the only thing I have. Like in a live setting, when something like that happens, it's just the worst.
Sounds like it. That's never good at all. So then the other side of things are, give me a best show moment. Give me something you thought was going to be terrible. It turned out great. Something that was like life affirming, made you want to continue on. Something along those lines. And let's go same order. We'll go Michael first.
Life affirming, huh? Wow.
It would be life affirming. Just a good. It could just be like a really good show for some reason. It can be however you want to interpret it.
Yeah, I guess I would say that we played with. I think Exhalants was on my birthday, if I remember right. And that was with Glowing Brain, right?
Yep.
That was probably. I'd never gotten a chance to play a show on my birthday, and that was at the Knockout, which, before everything, like it's pretty much started to be our
before the troubles.
Yeah, it was kind of our spot. Like I don't know, had just like a lot of good shows there the last like year or so, and that was one of those where it was pretty well attended. I think it was like a Tuesday show, but between the fellows in Glowing Brain were old friends. Love those guys, and Exhalants are just bring it. Like they just were I'd never seen them before, and it was just one of those where I'm like, wow, I'm pretty lucky to be able to spend my birthday doing this. One of those where you kind of look around and go, oh yeah, this is really cool. That show was a lot of fun. Yeah,
that's a good one. That's a great lineup. Jeff.
Well, I guess I'll just throw in a knockout story too. That show with Art Grey Noise Quintet and Musk was just like one of my favorite shows I can remember, just because, as we've been saying, not having a whole lot of people with similar influences or similar mixture of influences. Like that show, people who know like inside and out things like Mule and AMREP, but also like Lubricated Goat and Birthday Party and Aussie grime punk and scientists and all that stuff. That whole crowd was just more than we could have asked for. And I just kind of wanted to make sure we brought it. And I think we did. So it was super fun. Everybody was super cool. All the guys from New York City were super, super happy to play. Although the funny thing is it was like, it was an old person show. So I was dismayed to see the sun.
Wait, aren't they all?
Whoa, yeah. I was going to say, can Can you give me a definition for what that means?
Well, these right before the Troubles, what it meant was that a lot of bands were playing when the sun was still up, which is kind of crazy to me. It's like,
okay, allowing
show,
for
matinee
adult
show.
schedules. Okay, yeah.
I mean, it was a Saturday night, but like I think there was like bingo afterwards or something. I don't know, something that the kids prefer to live music, and so we were like Stu Spasm and Musk and us were like the opener to bingo or whatever. But no diss against Knockout because they are keeping it totally legit by whatever means necessary, and they're geniuses for that reason. So yeah, that was a great night.
I was almost thinking of like the coolest retirement home or something when you said old person shit.
We have not done that yet.
I was going to say, you thought the was it the prom or whatever it was would be weird. I got proms in the brain. Everything is a prom now. Sorry.
Yeah,
Sam.
the other, real quick, sorry. The other thing I remember from that show, and it plays into the old person thing. My kid graduated 8th grade. So
right.
I had to ask Musk because I was going to be in Petaluma and then had to make it like leave the graduation, which was at like 1:00 or whatever, and be able to make it there and ask them. And I think they had to put us like toward the back of the bill or whatever. Like, so, and yeah, they were super flexible, but it was definitely, that's another old person thing for sure.
That's some real life obligation rock and roll right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Sam.
I think the best show was at Hemlock with Cutlass and some other band, but just, I mean, like filling the Hemlock room was
I think
just.
it was Musk.
Oh, was it Musk?
That was Musk, yeah.
So it's, I mean, didn't take a lot to fill it, but just that room and the sound of everything in there. Yeah, that was the best. Just like packed people. That was great. But I think the most important show would probably be when Michael didn't even play, when we had the drum machine that Michael saw, that kind of started everything in motion. So that might be the most important one, because I know we did PRF not the year before, but the year before that, and I was just really freaked out and really intimidated by how tight knit was. And then we didn't play the next year, and then Conan, you asked us to do that one. I was like, must be doing something right, kind of stuff. So yeah, I think that was cool.
Well, that's very nice, and obviously you were, because not everyone gets booked on the same night as Fired Bass Player. So.
I think we went on right afterwards, which was a tough act to follow.
I was gonna say it's talking about where's Andrew with talking about the theater of the absurd.
That's right.
I had so many people walk up to me and be like, is that planned? Is this a thing? I'm like, I have no idea. I have no clue. I'm as in the dark as anyone.
Because those three bands, it was them, Catastrophe Girlfriend, and then us, and then Reptoid. And I remember when Catastrophe Girlfriend was kind of finishing up, and so I'm like, well, I'm going to go talk to the sound man and just let him know we have a kind of a complicated setup. And I'd never met Jordan before, so I go back there and I'm like, hey, so we're going on next, and we have some direct boxes. We got a little drum machine. I played 2 cabinets, and we'll be borrowing equipment. So yeah, just he's like, okay. I was like, all right, smart ass, what's up? I guess we'll see. And then he comes in, and the sound was all cool and all that, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess he's pretty good. And then he goes up there with like 8 pedal boards and like,
yeah, his setup was like 20 times more complicated with like weirder stuff.
Yeah. I was like, oh wow.
It's like, all right, Romper Room, what's up? Yeah, I got
you ready for a summoning?
Yeah, exactly. Have fun with your demons. I'm gonna be over here staging a space invasion. Fellas, it's been great having you. This has been really good times, and really appreciate all the great music you guys put out this year. Like I said, I think people need to, Condemn Collapse, Shapeshifter. There's all kinds of music that you guys have put out. I hope people that are interested check it out. I hope people that have the other records will check out the other stuff. Last thing I do on the show, it's a can question. We're gonna have to do the round robin because there's 3 of you, as you understand, and you can choose to interpret this however you like. But why do you do what you do? And let's start. Sam, you start this time.
I do it. I'd probably be dead if I didn't. I'd kill myself. For sure, some is survivor. I do it to survive.
Michael?
I haven't found anything more magical in life than music. And I mean, I would say all of my relationships that I've made, for the most part, have always centered around it. And yeah, I don't know, like the practice room, live, everything. Like it's the spice of life. And I'm a dad. I have a 15-year-old boy who also plays music. And like that's awesome. But like the sort of like the difficult to put your finger on, like when your heart flutters kind of thing, for me has always been related to making music in some form or fashion. It's just nothing better.
Jeff?
I can't say what these guys have already said, but it definitely hits me deep and hard, and musical experiences, and I need it, and I think we're all lifers in this, so it's like, even though it sucks right now, it's like we're sticking around because we have no choice. So it's an alternate universe that I need.
Well, I'm glad that you guys are, and I think you've put out a great body of work, and I'm glad to know you, and I've been glad to have you guys on the show tonight.
Thanks, Conan.
Thanks so much for doing it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, man. It was a blast.
Thank you.
TunnelSF.bandcamp.com for most everything. I think there's a TunnelSF.com also. Yeah.
Yep.
Right. And then all the normal things you would find. What's the tell me the record label that Shapeshifter's on again? Sorry.
Forbidden Place Records.
Forbidden Place Records for Shapeshifter. Fellas, thank you so much.
Thanks, Conan.
Thank you.
Really
very
appreciate
much.
the time.
Thanks,
and,
man.
Look forward to see whatever you guys do next.
Thank you.
Happy New Year, man.
Happy New Year.
Bye.
All right. There they go. The Tunnel. This would be a good time to play a song, so I'm going to go ahead and do that.
These
right. That was The Tunnel. Collapse. And before that, with Punisher, off the excellent Shapeshifter record, which is one of my favorite records of 2020, and it appears in the Best of 2020 episode. As mentioned earlier, that was the boys at The Tunnel. Jeff, Michael, Sam. Good fellas. Good band. The Tunnel, SF. On most social media. TunnelSF.com. TunnelSF.bandcamp.com to get all their stuff. Super interesting band. I obviously like them a lot. That's why they're on the show. But I hope you guys, if you aren't already familiar, you should get familiar. They're very good. I like what they do a lot.
As we come to the close of our broadcast day.
The name of the show is Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. The show happens on the internet.
Farewell transmission.
Radio Nope, usually Thursdays, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific. RadioNope.com.
Signing off, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all the ships at sea.
ProtonicReversal.com for the archives.
Anyone within the sound of my voice.
Patreon.com/Protonic Reversal to get episodes of the show sooner. $1 a month will get you there.
I've got 50,000 watts of power.
No ads, no sponsors, no kidding.
I want to ionize the air.
Got a couple surprises for the end of the year, I think. We'll see. I don't want to count my chickens for they're hatched, but thanks for a great 2020. I mean, it was a terrible 2020, but
This microphone turns sound.
Thanks for hanging out with me.
electricity.
if I don't talk to you before.
Can you hear me now?
Stay safe out there.
Out on Route 128.
And as always,
Dark and lonely.
take it easy.
Got my radio on. Can you hear me now? 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 See the radio. And that snare drum and that drum roll means we've got a winner! If you're the fifth caller, or any caller at all, welcome to my top 10. I'd like to thank our sponsor. But we haven't got a sponsor. Not if you were the last man on earth. She was prepared to prove it. This one goes out to a special girl. But there is no special girl. It's the end of radio. The last announcer plays the last record. The last what? Leaves the transmitter. Circles the globe in search of a listener. Can you hear me now? really broadcasting if there's no one there to receive? It's the end of radio. As we come to the close of our broadcast day, my radio on. Can you hear me now? This is a test! If this had been a real emergency, hey! This is a real goddamn emergency!